Heyo, Luckies. Welcome back to the Luck Management Podcast. On this next installment of the Luck Management Lifestyle, we have on a friend, a mentor, a man that has been in media for 30 years, from CNBC to Bloomberg, to moving his media experience all the way into the forefront of working at PwC, and now has his own company, Castle Sand Consulting. Ed Caldwell, a friend of mine that I met in chance opportunity, on luck, we came together, and now we are such great friends. This is a two-part episode because we couldn't stop talking, and the stories and the things that he talks about are out of this world, from what the world looked like with Michael Jackson back in the day, to how you have to have that work-life balance, or the work-life blend, he likes to call it. We get into the hardships of life and building out your relationships, and how relationships should always be coming together and growing each other as one. He is a great fun to talk to. He's got so many cool stories. I think that people will look back on this episode and absolutely love the content that comes out of it. So I thoroughly enjoyed his time, and he also wants to be a mentor to anybody of the Notre Dame community. So do not hesitate to reach out, connect with him, learn from him, because he has knowledge that will go beyond your own years. So please enjoy this episode, and as always, we are brought to you by Charm ND. So let's go.
All right, well, let's get into the managing expectations segment of the podcast. So why don't you start us off and give all the luckies out there a little bit of a rundown of your upbringing and what you're doing today, up to today.
Oh my goodness. So you want me to go through all 66? No. Start at the beginning, go to the end and then stop.
I was born.
I was born. I grew up in the Cleveland, Ohio area. I came from a gritty industrial town called Lorain, Ohio. And when I say that, this is a town where they had steel plants. They built cars. They built ships. I mean, you always had a guarantee that when you got out of high school, if you needed a job, there was a job at the mill or the plant, you were going to do it until, the late 70s rolled around, and then there wasn't. When I was in high school, my father had a choice. He could either move to South Bend, Indiana, or San Francisco. And he said, well, you grow up Irish Catholic in Pittsburgh. South Bend is Notre Dame is a national shrine. So off we went. And I was a townie during my 4 years.
There's no doubt on that. San Francisco can wait. You got to go to South Bend.
So we were there, and I rewarded their thinking by getting turned down the first time I applied. Felt a lot like Rudy. I went back in, and at the end of my senior year, can't imagine this happening today, but I went in at the end of my senior year in June after graduation, and I walked into the admissions office, and I got hold of somebody, and I said, will you please take another look at my application? Look, here's my transcript. And I'm literally holding up the paper. And I said, would you please take a look at it? And, they sat me down and they talked me through. And I said, I'm convinced that at this point, who's showing up on campus this fall. And surely there's somebody who decided to go someplace else. In the middle of June, I got a call. And they said, well, you're in. But because you're from South, they said, because you're from South Bend, we're asking the kids from South Bend to live at home their freshman year, because they'd only started admitting women a couple of years prior. And the building of new dorms had not caught up. So they said, please live at home. So I did. And then I worked my way through school. I put myself through. And that meant that I was working about 30 hours a week. So I was very fortunate. I found a job in broadcasting in South Bend. I was with one of the radio television stations through my college years. And that I have to admit, was as valuable to me as getting my education, getting a leg up on my career was really important to me. So I devoted that time to it. My grades did suffer. I did, I had like dean's list grades for my major, but not such dean's list grades for the rest of. I made the upper half of the class possible.
You had the experience though. I
There you
mean,
go.
you were doing it. You were living.
Yeah,
You were probably getting more than what you could get out of just a classroom setting. You were being.
it was great. And then after I graduated, it was interesting. Some of your listeners will know this person. They hired at the NBC affiliate in South Bend two of us who came out of that graduating class. One was me, and the other was a woman named Ann Thompson. And Annie is now Ann Thompson of NBC News, and she's been a senior correspondent there forever. Has sat on the board at Notre Dame, and it's interesting. We had our first job together, and it's funny. All these years later, Annie and I are still friends. Don't get to see each other as often as we'd like, but we
For
always
sure.
pick up where we left off. And then for the first 10 years of my career, I was in front of the camera, and then my wife and I always had a deal. We knew we wanted to both go to New York. And we had this deal. I said, whoever got the great job offer that they always wanted, the other would agree to follow. And the very day that I signed a contract with an NBC affiliate in Buffalo, New York, she found out that her job was transferring to New York. So for
Oh my
10
gosh.
months, we lived in two different cities. We would fly back and forth on the weekends. We threw ourselves at our work, flew back and forth. And then along the way, I'd done a lot of work with NBC News, and somebody over there said, we have this new cable channel. We can get you a job there. And I remember my news director saying, business news on television? Nobody wants their business news on television. Their
Oh my
slogan,
gosh.
their slogan ought to be, now you see NBC, now you don't. So I went there and traded the on-camera work for off-camera and ultimately, higher up positions in producing. Went to Bloomberg Television for about 10 years.
Hmm.
Then I went through a big transition myself. I went through a big downsizing in 2010. I was walking across the street. All my peer managers, my bosses, it was big. I decided I had a choice to make. Either I was going to point fingers and say, "Oh, I should have been able to stay," or I could decide that this was going to be the best thing that ever happened in my career.
The
And
next chapter. Yeah.
right in the middle, I'm not kidding you, Carter, in the middle of 58th Street, right at Lexington, I stopped and said, "This is going to be the best thing that ever happened in my career." I got my car, went home, carved a new niche for myself, worked in wealth management for a few years, and then realized how much I enjoyed working with media. So I went in that direction, and it landed me at PwC ultimately, where I had the greatest fulfillment of my professional career. It was a fabulous experience. And
See,
now
it is.
and now I'm retired.
See, it is not a linear thing. You probably would have said, I don't know how I got here, but every step that you took was a little bit more of getting to where you wanted to be.
Well, two things. First, I would tell people, and when I was working with my mentees, I would say, there's a thread that runs through this. I used the phrase before. I said I demystified arcane financial information. I did that for 20 years in financial television. I did that in wealth management for clients, and I did that in my role at PwC. I worked with our financial services group, our deals group, private equity. So, here was a kid who never took a business class. When I was at Notre Dame, I couldn't even get into an accounting class because I wasn't a major.
That it stopped recording for a second because I got a call, but we're back on. Okay, sorry.
When Okay. Where were we? We were talking about. Hold on. Let me.
You were
Go
no,
ahead.
you're all good. Sorry about that. I was just getting a call, so it actually stopped my recording. So I'll have both recordings. Um, but you were just talking about
Oh no. Let me pick it up.
okay.
One of the things that I talked to my mentees about
Yeah.
was this idea of not the title, but what you do. I changed fields, but I didn't change careers. For 20
Mm,
years, I was involved in demystifying financial information for an audience on television. Carried that through for clients in wealth management, carried that through at PwC, where I worked in financial services and
wow.
deals and private equity. So I always, I knew what I was good at. And I laugh because when I was at Notre Dame, I couldn't even get a business class because I wasn't a major. So, here I felt like, I went to the school of hard knocks, asked 3 times as many questions as the next person. But I felt like, okay, I got how this works. And I was actually inspired by it. And I ended up really enjoying it, which is to say I would sit down with, I'd sit down with these partners and, I'd geek out over, Fed policy, and we would have discussions on banking regulations. And I always thought it was interesting, but that's what I built my career around.
No, that's fantastic. That's really cool that you were able to formulate and build your career instead of your job. That's really interesting, and I think something that everybody should take a nature of looking in the mirror and saying like, what am I doing and what am I trying to achieve? So if you had to look at your career up until this point, because you're still learning, you're still mentoring, you're still a part of it, what words, if you could put like 5 words uh, at hand of, you know, what that culmination has become?
Climbed the mountain, came back. Um, I
Nice.
I worked. Everybody. I think a lot of people work hard, and I felt like um, I was right there with the. I tried to be there. I wasn't one of the best of them, but I worked hard. I uh, I laughed. Somebody recently said, "So what are you doing these days?" And I said, "Well, I get up in the morning. I do Wordle in the New York Times, and then I may read into the news, and then I'll, maybe at 9 o'clock I'll take a nap. And before that, I worked for 55 years. So
Right, right.
um,
Well, oh, play. Okay, so you may play Wordle. Play
yeah,
the New York Times mini puzzle. It's a great
yes,
one. I love playing that. And then, do you ever play Connections
I
on?
do play connections
I,
every day, and
I've just gotten into Connections. I love it.
I play I play the spelling bee. I have someone
Mm,
else I play the game with, and a couple of people that I play it with, but we stay at spelling bee in the New York Times till we get queen bee, which means you've come up with all the words. Like today, there were 73 words. And it's like, is this ever going to end? Who has the time to come up with 73 words? But I do that. I get up at my day begins at about 4:30, 5 o'clock, and I'll do all of that by 6:30 generally.
mm-hmm.
Um, but it's a way to keep the mind sharp.
Yeah, it is. It's fun too. It's keeping you going. And yeah, when you can play with somebody, it makes it a little bit more exciting at the end of the
But
day.
you do want to get on the phone with these Wordle people sometimes and go, what were you
What do
thinking?
you, right, right. There's a million other better 5-letter words. Come on.
Yeah,
Don't
and
do
you
that
want to
to
do
me.
that with people, the curators for connections. You want to say, well, why'd you do that? That's no.
Yeah, I've found a couple little tips and tricks throughout the world of Wordle, but I try not to share because everybody has their own strategy and
Oh,
philosophy.
they do. It's amazing. This country can be so divided in so many ways, but you say Wordle and people go, oh, yeah, I play that every day. It's like,
Wordle is repairing the U.S. economy.
there you go.
It's changing the world. In terms of the U.S. economy, if you were starting a business tomorrow, what would it
No.
be?
Oh, God. Well, there'd be a lot of people who'd say, Ed, please do not start a business tomorrow. I would continue doing what I'm doing.
Nice.
I really found at this stage, retirement. Carter, retirement is not an end. Retirement is about
It's a beginning.
becoming. It's like becoming, it's like I'm not done with me yet. And what I found at this chapter is I really enjoy sitting down and chatting to people about, whether it's charting a course for their career or, working with companies that are looking and saying, we got to do a lot better on our communications. What's it take to do that? So, I have to admit it's enjoyable. So I would stay with what I'm doing. I'd go with what you know.
Yeah, there is such a pressure and a flex of being like, oh, you're entering the workforce and you have to work 40 years and then you have to retire and then you do this, you do that. But there is, as you've seen too, like the world of when people retire has completely changed. Some people don't want to stop working because it's they
Well,
enjoy it, right?
I look at how people define careers. I look at my son who's an actor, and he has never been a waiter. And I kidded him when he went. First off, I was very supportive, which I think puts me in the minority. A parent who is supportive of their child going into the arts. It was like, how could you do that? But to know Patrick is to love him and to appreciate why somebody like that belonged in that field. And
Kudos.
I've been very supportive along the way, but I'm intrigued by the gig economy, and we're seeing this more and more. People are not being defined by post-war corporate lives. We're seeing that when people say, no, I'm not going back into the office. I'm going to work from home. That we're finding who we are and how we're going to relate with our employers and how we're going to define what our career is all about. We used to talk about a work-life balance. I talk about a work-life blend. It's like I'm going to work for 3 hours, but then Ed, I'm going to go off. I've got a recital at my child's school. I'm going to be back at 3, but I'm going to work till 6, take a break. And I'm probably going to pick up something at 9:00 tonight because that's how I roll best. It's like,
Right.
okay, you be you. And if it works out, great. I saw that all the time with my group that I worked with. We were all in different cities. It was, we would get together once a quarter or so, all in the same city. But we would all go in different directions. There wasn't any of this, you got to be all in the same cubicles together all day long. I'm
Yep.
intrigued by that. I just find it amazing because I think we're shifting the tectonic plates when it comes to defining what work is all about. That it's not my dad's office building. It's changing, but what it's going to become is really hard to tell. And that's what, when kids are coming out of schools now, I'm just so intrigued by what shape is this going to take.
I think that so much so of the evolution of work changed with COVID and being in that work from home setting and then having to get back to the office. I actually see the world of work in the future. I think a long way down the line is that there will be like almost office communities where people will create like a living community that people can live and work in. That is like almost how you see like a Google campus where they have everything. So
Right.
it almost becomes an interactive part of like a little bit of an identity because it is very hard to separate those two. It is a blend.
We saw that an early version of that when I was with Bloomberg. Any Bloomberg building.
Heyo, Luckies. This episode of the Luck Management Podcast is brought to you by CharmND. Love the CharmND. CharmND is one of my greatest passions, and it is the side business that fuels the Luck Management Podcast, but also just fuels me internally. When I went to Notre Dame, I loved every moment, but I wanted to have a way of holding more than just a t-shirt or a sweatshirt from Notre Dame. Yes, I got my diploma, thank God, go Irish. But at the same point, I wanted to create something with that you could have keychains, you could have necklaces, you could have earrings. And so what I did is I went all around campus. I worked with the marketing team at Mendoza. I worked with the Idea Lab and the Innovation Center, working tirelessly to figure out what would be a great thing for students and people like that love Notre Dame to hold that piece of Notre Dame. And so I came up with Charm ND, and we really have grown and expanded. And I always say really, but I'm the person who has the business. But we just got into the McCloskey venture, so hopefully going to be expanding. But at the same time, we are getting into this Christmas time. So if you need to get any pieces, check out my shop at Etsy. It's Charm ND Shop, or go on Instagram where it's charm_ND. I truly love this. It fuels the podcast. It is amazing. I'm always building out new pieces for people, and I just want to make sure that you guys all get to enjoy and love Notre Dame as much as I do. They're great stocking stuffers. They're great gifts to give to your dad, your mom. The earrings are some of the best sellers, where you send them and you give them to your loved one, your girlfriend, what have you. But just be ready and get some gear from Charm ND. So go Irish and go Charm ND.
You go into, it has this huge food court. They're known for their food court. You join that company, you get the Bloomberg 15, like the freshman 15. It's like, I don't care what the problem is, I could solve it with a bag of Oreos. But it was a way of bringing people together. They would locate the food court in a strategic crossroads of the building, physical, where all sides would cross over. You would have people from sales and development, intermingling with, people who are on the media side. And there was that exchange of ideas. And that was kind of a cool thing. Not having, we didn't have any offices. Mike Bloomberg's desk was 20 feet from the anchor desk, and you go over and chat it up with him. I think that, in its own way, was kind of a model in some respects, not all respects, but in some ways, a model for what we're going to become.
Bloomberg is a fascinating person to me. To build a news network, to build a news conglomerate that has become a staple of American society, to becoming the governor of New York and then being a part, right? Like,
he was always an overachiever. I think he was an Eagle Scout at like 12 years old or something. I have to look at Bloomberg on Bloomberg. His autobiography, ghostwritten by Matt Winkler, who was the founder of Bloomberg News.
Yeah,
but it is
synonymous with business.
The news group, and particularly Bloomberg Television, put his name all over the world. It was an interesting experience and development.
Yep, and to see that intermingling into politics, it's like, media and politics together. Those two go together. Speaking of Bloomberg and people that have changed the world, who would you call maybe the most crucial person in your life, or even the most critical person for you?
That's easy. That would be my wife.
Nice.
We've been together.
Shout out.
Shout out. There you go. We've been married since 1982. I auditioned for the role. Her sister introduced us. I worked with her sister. Her sister put her in front of the TV on a Sunday night and said, I can introduce you to the news guy or his roommate, the weatherman. She picked the weatherman, and he was busy, so I was set up on a blind date.
Whoa.
If I'd only seen the potential for creating a video dating service, but I tell people I had to audition. But Deb is a brilliant strategist. She came up through marketing. She was a vice president of marketing for one of the major pharmaceutical companies, and traveled all over the world. And it was interesting. She in her own right. I mean, when the boys were little, she said, I don't want a nanny knowing my kids better than I do. And she'd had this tremendous success in work and walked away from it. To be, I don't want to say a full-time mom. You're always a full-time mom, whether you're working or not. You're a full-time mom. But she devoted it full-time, and then has devoted all those years to working with schools and with parishes on developing strategic plans in their own right and going forward. But she always understood the work that I was in, or, she asked a lot of questions, and, you not only had the love that drew you together, but she was also, critical to any, my decision making, my dealings with people, my management style, my empathy. She was, all of it together.
It's 1 + 1 = 3. My mom always says, when you can join with somebody and make yourselves the sum of even more, that's when you know you have somebody that you can stick and stand behind forever. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's interesting for her, I think, suddenly having me, at home all the time. It's like,
Okay, I love you, but not that much.
yeah.
Yeah.
What was it?
Go find a hobby.
Lou Holtz once gave a talk, and he said, my wife and I have been married 40 happy years. We've had 40 happy years, 20 for her and 20 for me.
That's so funny.
No, we've always gotten along great.
No, beautiful. So in terms of your life and you being a mentor, you've spoken on it a couple times. Is there any core piece of advice that you would give to people that are maybe just starting out their careers or trying to figure things out?
Oh man, yeah, you can offer a whole bunch of different things from a career standpoint. Go in with your eyes open, and again, think of what you do, not in terms of your title, but in terms of what put it in verbs. Here's what I do. Don't just say I'm a copywriter. Say I turn browsers into buyers. Think in terms of what you do, because then that will open up new vistas for you. If you simply say I'm a this, then that's self-limiting. You're saying that I can only do it with this kind of industry or this kind of company. But if you say this is what I do, then you may say, I could do it over here, or I could do it over here, or I could do it over here. I was able to do that.
Yeah.
Have an idea of what you want to achieve, but in the periphery, see those shiny things. Don't dismiss them. What are those things? What are those little glowing objects? And is there something in there that I need to explore? And go ahead and do that. On a practical standpoint for young people coming up, I'd say do that, but also save. The old thing, get a good financial advisor even when you don't have any money. So you
Don't get into crypto.
No, but build a framework for your success. If you find that, this is what I like to do, but if at some point I may need to walk, witness, when you left your role, if I need to walk, then I'm going to have 3 to 6 months salary on hand to live off of. If I need to, if I want to take a moment and find myself, be prepared to do that.
Mm-hmm. Go in, eyes open.
Go in with your eyes open. But, I like to ask people, what did you study? And they'll say, oh, I was a history major. And it's like, well, but you're not doing that now. What drew you away? There was that famous George Clooney movie, Up in the Air, in which he was a hired gun who would go in and lay people off at offices, and he met with one guy and had to let him go. And he said, how much did they pay you to pull you away from being a chef? And the guy looked at him. He said, your resume said that you were a trained like French executive chef. And said, how much did they pay you to lure you away from your dream? And the guy looks and says, $27,000. So you stop and say, really, what is it that I want to do? What do I want to become? Life is all about becoming. What is it that I want to become? And how am I, what do I need to do to get there? On a practical standpoint, I would tell the people who work for me, I'd say, first, my number one job is to get you promoted. I want to get you promoted. When I do a performance review on myself, first thing I did was say, this person, and this person got promoted this year, and I'm going to bask in the reflective glory of their announcement. But I'd talk to them about it, and I'd say, I don't want to know necessarily what you want to do next. I want to know what you want to do maybe in the next job after that. And then we're going to kind of work backwards and say, if that's where you want to be, what role do they want to hire you from? And how do you get to that role? And then we can talk.
Yep. Yeah, we're always looking forward, but like, hey, let's say, where do you want to get to? And then retrace the steps back. But that really hit me right there. $27,000 impacts and brings somebody to the next, maybe leaving their dream. Sometimes we get so focused on the money aspect that we don't realize the action that we're taking.
Well, we do. And, particularly, people who are in transition, a lot of times, we have this dream, we take a job, and then we get married, we have a mortgage, we have kids going to school, and now all of a sudden the dream got lost, and we're there because we have obligations to meet. And sometimes if there is any kind of upset or upside to a transition, it's that it can be it was for me, it was a liberating experience. It allowed me to take a step back and say, what do I want to do? And somebody once made the point, before I can tell my life where I'm going, I have to listen to my life tell me where I've been. And you kind of go through those moments and evaluate it, move on.
I love the quote, and I just pulled it right back up again. We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing. And there has to be play. It's beautiful. Cool. So moving into shifting a little bit different, looking at dinner. You're sitting down for dinner. You're sitting down for a meal. Who are some of your dream guests to be right around across your table?
Oh, man. Living or dead?
It could be either.
It can be either. Mm-hmm. Oh, my gosh.
Up to 4.
Up to 4? So I'm not going to invite all my professors back.
No, they can.
Gosh. You know what would be a fun conversation? I'd love to have this. Here's what I'd like to do. What if we brought together the likes of Abe Lincoln, Harriet Tubman,
nice,
Bobby Kennedy. I'll tell you in a sec where I'm going with this. Bill Gates, and someone like a Michelle Obama. And we had Father Theodore Hesburgh, and I'm not just paying lip service here, because he was uniquely qualified to have this conversation. What if we brought these people together and we had a frank discussion about the underclass in America and how to help and how to raise people up, how to create a better life for people? Because, you think in terms of, Lincoln and a Harriet Tubman and what they would have seen in the more formative years of this nation. I always maintained that somebody like a Bobby Kennedy had a unique perspective of any political leader at the time on the underclass in America for the work that he did in the South and in the Southwest, and
mm-hmm.
The work that he did with the likes of guys like Cesar Chavez. And and then combine that with modern, up-to-date voices like Michelle Obama or Bill Gates, who is in the position of affecting change and saying, what could we do? What could we do differently? What would change the station of life for the underclass in America? Because it's out there, but the solution has been vexing. What can we do about that? I think it'd be an interesting perspective.
To be a fly on the wall of that conversation and
Right?
to be able
But
to take in. Yeah.
you think about somebody like a Father Hesburgh, the work that he did in civil rights, for instance, and working, with the poor, and he would have such an
A living
appreciation.
saint, or he was like a
He
living
was a
saint
living saint.
almost.
Yeah. The difference between God and Father Hesburgh. Do you ever hear this?
No.
God is everywhere. Father Hesburgh was everywhere but Notre Dame. He was always traveling.
He was. He was. He was an international man and icon. And I actually was lucky enough to go up to his office when I graduated. So I was able to go see and experience the office that he had and seeing where he did his work.
Wow. When I was a freshman, a group of us were standing around and we were outside of Alumni Hall. And we were talking about finals. And, none of us had ever been through finals week before. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's Father Hesburgh. And he comes over and he just starts chatting us up. And it's like, well, how cool is this? Wait till Mom hears who chatted it up with us today.
Mm-hmm.
But he had that touch. He could meet with world leaders, but then, 1:00 in the morning, he's talking to students.
Fantastic. All right. As a man that's accomplished many things in his life, what else is on the bucket list for you?
Boy, right now, there's some traveling that I want to do. And, parts of, I've had a chance to see, a bunch of the world, but there are places that I haven't been that come a calling. Oddly enough, since we're talking about, through Notre Dame, one of the places I've always wanted to visit is Westminster Abbey. I've been in front of it, but it was always when I was in London on work. So I never got inside. But having the name Edward, I always wanted to go. St. Edward laid the cornerstone for the original Westminster Abbey, and there's a St. Edward Chapel, and I always thought it would be interesting to go. Lo and behold, of course, he is the patron saint of the founder, Father Soren. So I want to do that. I want to continue the work that I do with mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I vowed. It was funny. I vowed when I left work. They said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I'm going to write. I want to write." And you go out of work with all these intentions, and you get there, and it's like, wait a minute. Anne Morrow Lindbergh wrote a marvelous little book back in 1955, Gift from the Sea. She talked about how they would go to their little island, and she would always plan ahead, and she would have all these things she was planning to do, and you get there, and it's like a whole new world. And none of that mattered. But now I want to start getting back into some of that.
I love to write. I have had my fits of journaling where it would be every day, right before bed, and I'm trying to get back into it. But I think I have over 200 pages of writing that I just find a lot of peace in being able to express myself there.
Isn't that nice? Wow. I've enjoyed doing a lot of reading. When I left,
Mm-hmm.
one of the first books I picked up was Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye. And I picked that up for two reasons. One, Toni Morrison was from Lorain, Ohio, and the book is set in Lorain. And I had not read it, never had reason or opportunity. So that was one of the first ones that I read. And I marveled at her writing style. The other reason I read it is every week it's on somebody's book ban list. And and I really don't have any room for book banners. So it was my little
Yeah,
protest.
you said let's go.
So,
Yeah.
so I said, well, let's start with her. And I've also read a lot of my Mark Twain, for much the same reason. I don't know how you can, you know, pretend to want to rewrite history. Are you going to, make us better by blocking out who we were? No, I don't think so.
No. I'm also reading this book right now called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. It's by John Mark Comer, if you've ever heard of him. He's a Christian writer,
Okay.
and it's all about the idea of getting rid of this hurriedness that we have in our society and this rush that we always have to get to the next port. Like we always need to be doing something, we always need to be doing this or that. And it's about living in the yoke of God, of Him giving you the tools to be able to slow your life down so that you can appreciate and live in the good things.
I'll tell you, one of my favorite passages from Scripture, it is just one little line. Jesus awoke long before dawn and went to a quiet place to pray. Here was Jesus saying, I need to withdraw. And all this business, all this healing, all this preaching, here was this itinerant preacher who said, I need to pull away. And there are a lot of references to that in Scripture about Jesus went into the mountains. Jesus, went someplace. But he recognized you can't be on all the time, and
No,
sometimes when we're always saying, oh, I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I sometimes wonder, what are you running from, or are you running to your work? Because a lot of times I think people feel like, oh, I've got to be busier, somebody's going to be over my shoulders, and it calls into question, are you working out of fear, or are you working out of freedom? When you work out of fear, you're saying, I got to get going. And when you work out of freedom, you go, hey, you know what we could do? It's like, hey, what if we tried this? What if we did this? What
yep,
if we did this with this project?
yeah.
What if I did this with my career? Working out of freedom is so much better. But to be able to do that, I think you have to take a step back, be intentional about it, and say, I need the help of time. I need help. Keeps coming up.
Have you ever seen the show Chosen?
That's on my bucket list. I've got to watch that. I see it. I haven't jumped into it yet.
If I could give any piece of advice, put that at the top of the bucket list. It is a fantastic show. 3 seasons, a really beautiful move through Jesus's life, and it's funny, it's entertaining, and you learn a lot about the other disciples. So it's the whole story of his movement in his preaching, and I would recommend it to anyone that is trying to get. Sometimes people don't want to read something that's 2,000 years old, right? But the
Right.
way, but the way that they build out these stories and the way that the production is millions of dollars. And they were the only show that didn't go on strike during this whole actor strike because of the religious importance of what they were doing. They were still getting millions of dollars to produce.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued as a student of management. Put yourself back. My friend Father James Martin always talks about this. He's a big proponent of what he calls imaginative prayer. Put yourself in the setting of a scriptural reading. And I would often invite my confirmation students to put yourself in a situation. So put yourself in the early Christian church. I mean, Jesus has just ascended and now you're there with the apostles. Who's talking? How do you get this disparate group of fishermen and, to start coming together? And who's doing what? And who's saying what? And how are they doing that? Who's listening? Who's talking? I'm intrigued by all of that.
One of the best episodes that they have is their loaves and fishes episode, and that comes, I think, near the end of season 2 or 3. but you will be amazed, and I'm excited to talk with you in the future of when you start watching it.
Deal. Done and done.
All right. And to culminate the managing expectations, are you lucky?
I am blessed.
Nice.
Somebody once asked me, do you see the glass half full or half empty? And I said, yes. I said, wait a minute. I said, I see the glass a quarter full on the bottom, and it's a quarter full at the top, and I reside in the middle somewhere. You can't go through a struggle without having hope. You can't always be on top of the world, because if you're a realist, you know that things are not always going to go your way. You're not going to get the promotion. You're not going to get, you're not going to win the lottery. You're not going to get the contract that you hope for. You always have to be prepared. But, having that, that hope is a confidence of, is the certainty that things are going to turn out okay.
I love it. Hey, luck is a definition of growing and building and believing that good things can happen, because that can come. And that is the luck management lifestyle. So that is the managing expectations questions. But before we finish this podcast, I now have rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
So you just, whatever comes to mind for you, just answer that out for these
dangerous.
10 questions. All right.
Go ahead.
Number one, what is one talent that you wish you had?
The ability to keep time to music.
Nice. I think everybody would want that one.
It's funny. I don't hear beats. Mark Twain once said his dance steps were known to himself and a kangaroo. That is me. I just can't follow timing in music. I have to look at you when we're clapping in unison. I have to look at you when I'm supposed to
know
clap.
where to go.
Yes.
Hey, you got other skills. Utilize those, right? What is the best thing that happened to you this week? I think your family moving in, I guess.
My family.
Right. Okay. What is your go-to karaoke song?
Oh, let me think. It would either be Tony Bennett's I Left My Heart in San Francisco, or I'm an oldies fan, Nat King Cole's Love. L is for the way you look.
Oh, great song. Hey, that was a good beat right there. Do you believe in second chances?
Absolutely. Isn't that what reconciliation is all about? Yes, forgiveness. We're all about forgiveness.
I love it. Do you like surprises?
Sure. It depends. I've had my share of bad surprises, so I'll take the positive ones.
Fair enough. Who do you turn to when you are sad?
I would say probably more often than not, my wife. We in our marriage, we've always been very open and very consoling to one another when things aren't going our way.
What did you want to do with your life at age 12?
Wanted to be a doctor until I got to high school science class, and my lab partner filled the sink all up with paper towels, poured alcohol on it, and started it on fire. And my teacher and I did not get along after that. I don't know why he blamed me, but I didn't do it.
It was not for you.
No.
You took the fall. Good.
Yeah. But I had my freshman year of high school, I had an English teacher who said, I'm going to start teaching a class I want you to sign up for. I said, what is it? And she said, journalism. I think you'll really enjoy it. How about that? I took her out to lunch. I went back to Ohio, found her, took her to lunch, and said, thank you.
Wow. Those stories are the ones that you make you believe in teachers and that mentorship. I mean, and that's why you do what you do. Window or aisle seat?
Oh, I'm an aisle seat guy, but I'm looking out the window. I'm that guy who looks and wants to. I want to see what's going on out there, but I feel a little more room on the aisle.
A little bit more room on the aisle. Okay, what invention do you wish you were known for?
Oh, there's a good one. What invention? Oh, that's nice. You have Thomas Edison tested 1,600 filaments before he came across the one that worked on the lamp. 1,600. So I could come in right now and say, I'll take credit for the light bulb. Okay. No.
Yeah, that's a great one. Thomas
Peter,
Edison was actually my neighbor in West Orange, where
oh
his
my
house
gosh.
was.
Peter Roget was 73 when he got his little thesaurus finally published, and I'm going to take credit. No, you know what? You know what I would take credit for? I would take credit for air conditioning. I mean, you look at our cities and you see how our buildings and our lives were changed by the invention. Willis Carrier, and there were others, but Willis Carrier invented the modern version of air conditioning as we know it back in, 1900, 1902, something like that. But you think about, you look at how our cities are designed around the idea of people being comfortable in buildings. And that was Carrier.
The exponential rise of people, disease gone down, safety, people just surviving has all been due to air conditioning. It's crazy. And then the last one of this rapid fire, first thing you do to start your day.
I think I told you, I get up, I do meditate, and then I sit down with my puzzles and
Good.
and go to work on it.
Accomplish some things to start the day. I love it. All right. And that is the luck management lifestyle. So
Wow.
thank you
have had
so
fun.
much for coming on the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. This has been fun.
So,
boy, you got me thinking. Now I gotta rework my whole life. I'm gonna figure things out.
yeah,
But you know what?
yeah.
You're right, though. I mean, we never stop. We can't. We got to keep going.
We keep going. This conversation has been nothing but enlightening. And Ed, you have become a friend and a mentor to me, truly, through the few times that we've known each other.
Carter, it's a real joy to talk with you. We, for your audience purpose, we set aside time late Friday afternoons, which is perfect for both of us, and we get caught up on the cares and the worries of the week, and then we actually, we talk shop a little bit, talk life a little bit. It's been so rewarding. It's just been a joy, and I can't thank you enough.
So many people are going to love this episode, and I am excited I hope that there's a few people that even reach out to me that are looking for a mentor, because I know that you are willing and want to talk to people in that world. So thank you for your stories and your thoughtful nature.
Well, if I can help, I will. I'll just be one more set of ears. And, like I said, it's great to be a giver, but you also want to be a recipient. You want to have that ability to say, hey, hear me out. And I think that's what a lot of us need is somebody who's, going to listen. And so we try.
Yes, I always hope that there's always a few listeners on the pod.
There you go.
So whatever you do, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. Keep living the luck management lifestyle. Peace.